I've had people ask me about books before, but I'm just going to go over my books, especially if you're an Indigenous person and you're trying to have conversations with people who are white and you just have never had the language to describe what you're trying to describe. I'm going to give you books, and this is just personally the books that I've read. These are almost predominantly books that I've read within the last year, specifically because I wanted to have these conversations and it's been hard for me to find the language. Also, another resource I want to give you is follow Black women. Black women are light years ahead in the conversation of institutional racism and sexism. Specifically, Black women from the United States, I have learned so much from them. And then this is what I've also drawn upon in my own reading. All of these things tie into each other. So why does he do that? Inside the minds of angry and controlling men. The reason that this would be specifically important for Indigenous people is this talks a lot about Catholicism. Not necessarily like just straight to your face, but it does talk about how in like church culture, men are put above women and above children, and how that system perpetuates violence against women, which especially talking about murdered and missing Indigenous women. This book is like that so good. It is free online. You can find a free PDF, just Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft PDF, and you will be able to download it to your phone for free. It describes all types of controlling and abusive men. It's amazing. Specifically talking about Indigenous people, I reference 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act, and then on top of that, I am now reading Indigenous Relations Insights, Tips and Suggestions to Make Reconciliation a Reality. They're both by Bob Joseph. I'm currently reading this one, and I was going to use this again in I was going to make another whole series on this book. Me and White Supremacy by Layla F. Said. This is a workbook. This book is amazing because it talks about white supremacy as a system and how that system affects us all, and it's a workbook. So it asks you to reflect internally and do a lot of the work to understand, even if you're a person of color, even me being biracial, how has white supremacy, the system, been programmed into the way that I think? This is also a workbook, The Emotionally Abused Women, especially for Indigenous women. Even if you're a man, overcoming destructive patterns and reclaiming yourself, especially with the history of the schools and what has happened. Although there was like physical violence, a lot of what I see now is emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is something that people don't even kind of recognize or clock, and this is again a workbook, so it actually has you do like a lot of self-reflecting. I did this when I was in therapy. I just picked it up myself, same with Why Does He Do That, and those were instrumental in helping me understand. Next is In Defense of Witches. This is a book on feminism, and this goes into the history of how we got to where we are with patriarchy, and how men, because you can't dismantle racism without talking about sexism and patriarchy, which is what inherently has harmed Indigenous people, is the pedestalization of white men specifically. Now, that system, although it pedestalizes whiteness, it also pedestalizes men, which is why we see, yes, we have Starlight Tours, but we also suffer with a lot with missing and murdered Indigenous women, because women are the victims of men largely, not exclusively, so not only, but it affects women so much more. And so this book goes into that history and talks about all the ways, even down to childbirth, raising children, work, all of it. If you want to understand it better in order to have conversations about it, this book is amazing for that. And then I liked this book. I know Oprah Winfrey, but What Happened to You, what gave me a lot of insight into how trauma comes out even when you don't realize that something is affecting you, or you don't realize something has been ingrained, or someone has a reaction that's rooted in trauma, how that plays out day to day all the time with all survivors. And then most importantly, if we're wanting to talk about how all of these systems have harmed men, The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. This is also a feminist book. This is written by a Black woman. And she goes into how these systems target men specifically and how that affects them. And it does also affect women, and that emotional abuse component, and how raising kids, even now, regardless of your race, regardless of anything, how boys get socialized in this society. And I feel like to move forward and heal, all of these components kind of have to be touched on.